Morning and welcome to our first instalment of ALF Talks, a place to discuss the challenges and successes within sales, marketing and business development in the media industry in the UK. It seems only fitting after the last few months that in our first instalment we look at how sales and marketing teams have adapted during and coming out of lockdown. So I'm Amanda Ruddy, Head of Sales here at ALF Insight, and today I'm joined by two fabulous guests, ITV's Head of Commercial Marketing, Rachel Compton, and Clear Channel's Head of Marketing Operations and SME Marketing, Mark Mahoney. It's great to have you both. Thank you for joining us. So just a bit of housekeeping. We've only got 45 minutes for this webinar today, but if you do have questions, please use the Q&A box and we will try and get to them towards the end of the webinar, providing that we've got time. So without further ado, let's kick off. So Mark, Rachel, I want to take you back. I think it was the 23rd of March when Boris Johnson announced that the UK was going to go into lockdown. Suddenly schools were closed, living rooms, kitchens, garden sheds were transformed into offices. Consumers were suddenly stuck in their houses, and certainly I didn't know whether this was going to last a fortnight, a month, or how it actually has the vast majority of the year. So Mark, what was the reaction at Clear Channel those first few days and weeks of lockdown?
I'm struggling to remember because I think I raised it from my mind. For me personally, well, we're an out-of-home media owner, and suddenly everyone was told stay indoors. So it was chaotic, really busy, sort of incredulous as to what was happening. And then for me personally, from a business point of view, I've spent a number of years at Clear Channel, basically doing a lot of lead generation, telling businesses why they should be advertising out of home. So it's a little bit of, what do we do now? Everyone's told how to stay at home. So it was really challenging. I mean, personally, I know I spent the first few days sort of thinking, what do we do now? And then there was a lot of client management, because obviously lots of clients wanted to move, change their campaigns. So I think the overarching was be flexible, work with clients, work with businesses, get through this. And then there was a set of 3 clear principles agreed earlier on, one of which was really about being socially responsible. So it was really, because a lot of our operatives are out on the streets posting posters, we sort of decided not to do that, but it was about how we can work within communities to help people, basically. But yeah, it was a little bit of it was just a massive shock, and there's I was quite scared at the time.
Yeah, it was. I think it was scary for all of us, wasn't it? And Rachel, I mean, at ITV, obviously, it's slightly different from an audience perspective. But what was the initial response for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously, we're in a different situation to Clear Channel, because for us, everybody was stuck at home, and that's great because everybody turned to their televisions as a trusted source of information. You know, people were really, our daytime figures went through the roof. People really wanted to tune in and have that information. But obviously, very similar to Mark for clients, because our clients work on their campaigns months in advance, and then all of a sudden their messaging needed to be adapted. So again, like Mark, the key was flexibility. We have in-house creative that we offered out to clients to get them to change their messaging really quickly. Lots of people kind of took us up on that, which was fantastic. So it meant that we could still get clients on air and turn things around. I mean, some of our clients, we were turning things around in 24-hour periods, which is obviously kind of unprecedented for TV. So lots of kind of flexibility, adapting and kind of pivoting as well. And then from a kind of team point of view, we were really lucky at ITV that we were already set up on Google Hangouts. Carolyn McCall, our CEO, had already introduced smart working, so I was already doing a day a week from home. So my team were really used to being on Hangouts with me. I think the challenge for us was we had 2 new starters in my team on the day of lockdown. So the 23rd of March is etched in my mind. Because what a time to start a new job. I mean, I feel for them, it must have been really daunting to start in our industry when you can't meet people face to face. And, you know, as great as digital was at keeping us all communicating, I think, you know, for us in our industry, it is all about relationships. And so for us, you know, you can't really entirely replace that kind of face-to-face contact and build those relationships in the same way over Zoom. So I think, you know, moving forwards, we'll definitely be looking, and you know, I'm sure we'll talk about this more as this session goes on, but looking forward to having a blend of both.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, onboarding new starters definitely seems like a challenge in a virtual setting. Mark, how was it kind of for your team in that initial period?
Well, I get again similar to Rachel. I'm quite fortunate. My team are based in Manchester, so a lot of what we've been doing over the last couple of years anyway is about remote working and, you know, one-to-ones conducted over Teams or Skype. So it wasn't too bad. I think the London office, where the majority of our people are based, is slightly different because there's a lot of like account-based management, going out and seeing people. But I think one of the big trends, like probably across every industry, is about how fast people have just adapted. And I think people have been really pragmatic and just adjusted quite well. Whether that is sustainable is questionable, but definitely it was people just like worked really hard, went, how can we get the job done, and just adjusted and just got on with it. And like little things like you've noticed, like the cameras are now switched on every single call you did, where 6 months ago that was never the case. And it's like little things like that people just got on with straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely for me, it used to be a challenge trying to get you know, my guys with their cameras on when we were doing normal Zoom meetings, but now it's just the norm, isn't it? And people are much more accepting that that's the case. So I mean, looking at working from home, and I appreciate that, you know, you guys had already had experience with this, so we're quite well set up. But it really was something that sales and marketing people were just thrown into in March, whether they were ready for it or not. And in many cases, judging by all our backgrounds, it's you know, it's still the case. And slowly, I know some people are starting to return, you know, to the office. But I mean, you know, typically we spend more time with our teams and our colleagues than we do our own families in the normal world. So this has taken some adjustment, and blurring the work from home, well, the work and the home lines that we have in our life certainly comes with some challenges. So I mean, Rachel, what were the hardest parts for you to kind of manage in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part for me absolutely was having 2 young girls at home. I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old. My 3-year-old just does not understand the concept of work. She would come up, close my laptop. I think she video bombs every single call that I'm on. Even today, my eldest has just started back at school. Yay. But my other one doesn't start back yet, so I've had to drop her off at a neighbour. So lots and lots of challenges for me, but it's all been around the juggling of childcare. But on the positive side to that, as you pointed out, you know, I have spent so much more time with them. Cutting that commute out and having that time with them has been brilliant. At the beginning of lockdown, I think like everyone, we were baking and trying to get our hands on flour. We were going out, I bought a scooter, crazy, and we were going out scooting to get our daily 1 hour of exercise and just doing like really nice activities like that to just bond and make them feel like life was still a little bit normal, even though it wasn't at all. So that was great. But I think it was difficult for different people. I think everyone's had such an individual experience of it. So, I've got people in my team who are in flat shares in London, and that's quite lonely. And people who haven't got an office or set up to work from home, and for long periods of time, now we're into 6 months, that can cause kind of issues if you've not got that space or that setup. And at ITV, again, we had a few initiatives. We were quite lucky, so we were able to purchase some furniture, so desks for my team and screens, etc. As time went on, and we realised that we were going to be in this situation for a while. But again, I think that's something that we'll need to look at in the future if we are remaining at home a little bit more as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're absolutely right. It's individual responses to it. It's everybody's had different circumstances in which they've kind of had to navigate this. Mark, I mean, what were the challenges for your team being thrown into this?
I think, like, I was just thinking when Rachel was speaking about, we had a series of internal emails go out where people were sharing their own pictures of their office desks or their home desks. And it's right, like, I'm a middle-aged male who's got a bit of garden, space. My kids are a bit more grown up, but you could see, like, people with flats who were sharing small rooms and having to have Zoom meetings go on. So that was going on. So I think the individual experience is really, like, it is different. And you see everyone, I'm generalising here, but people from the north of England had massive gardens. So you can see complete, and I think there might be a lot of migration from London to, like, outside, possibly. But so there was different experiences. For me, it was just getting my kids to understand that they need to be quiet at points, and I don't think anyone does that. But again, my kids went back in May, so I was, like, I'm conscious of it. Like, I was quite fortunate. But yeah, you could see people's different experiences and how they were coping. So it's been a stressful time, because it's that the biggest challenge has probably been the blurring between work and home. It's quite difficult to switch off. Well, I really like the commute as a sort of reflection time almost. And yes, you're getting that time back, but you're also losing something, a little bit of me time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it is exactly those, that blurring of the lines between your two lives, isn't it? I mean, I suppose it's not all been bad though, has it? As we've already kind of mentioned there, with gaining extra time back for your life, spending more time with your family. In a recent survey that we did with our ALF users, 77% of them had essentially said that they were actually missing their colleagues in the office. But in the very same survey, there was definitely a feeling of working from home, needs to now be a thing in terms of going forward. In that workspace. So I suppose, what are those key things about this period that, regardless of what happens with COVID-19, you want to stay?
Well, I'd be really interested in everyone on this call's perspective on this, because the big thing I've noticed over the last few weeks is that people want more flexibility and expect it. It's not just about Clear Channel; it's about just the wider world. Because I remember when I first had children, having to beg my director at the time and my previous employer to leave half an hour a week early, and it was like, no, you can't do that. And I don't know about media, whether it's media is alone in this, but there used to be a bit of a battle to get flexibility. And I just think that now, whereas the office is massively important, like, what do we all need to commute at the same time? Do we need to go in the office 5 days a week? And I think people have got like for their mental health, have actually seen some benefits. And I think going forward, that's probably a long-term trend that it could be hard to overcome. I don't know what your perspective is on that, Amanda or Rachel or anyone else on this call.
I mean, I think, Mark, it's really refreshing that you were challenging that, years ago when your kids were little, and requesting that time and that flexibility, and hats off to you for doing that, because I think that's the only way we're going to get equality as women in the workplace, if more men are requesting that flexibility as well. And I would say with COVID, it's just accelerated these conversations, and it's the kind of fact that we now know we can all work digitally and from home successfully and all stay in touch, has kind of, I think will mean that it's pushed us forward a few years. So I think we're going to kind of, we can start having conversations like this and reimagining the workplace. Speaking up and having conversations like this one today is great, because I think we can all start thinking about how do we want it to work for us as kind of human beings, and get that balance back, because I think probably at our kind of stage in our career, we all did that time where all we spent was, I remember in my 20s just being in the office till midnight every night, and so I'd love to kind of reimagine that, so that everybody's got that kind of blend and that work-life balance moving forwards, because it's so important. We've kind of been spending much more time in our local communities, much more time with our kids, much more time. I mean, my team have been amazing. They've been doing art, getting together, doing art clubs, art classes, all kinds of crazy things, and I think, wow, I didn't have time to do that before. So I think it's much more enriching, and we can get more creative and bring much more of ourselves to the workplace if we've got this balance. So I think it's a really key kind of time for change, and I think this is the moment to kind of use our voices, put our perspectives forward to our own employers and to the industry, and create real change moving forwards. But I do think that it will be a blend of both. Like for me, it would be a blend of being in the office a couple of days a week, having that FaceTime with my team and clients, etc., and really building those relationships, having all our ideas sessions at that time, but then doing all the things that are the more business as usual that we know we can do perfectly well at home. So we've got that blend.
Yeah, exactly. It can sometimes be a bit of a challenge, when you look at the working day, we're often looking at the day of our clients, aren't we? So if you're in sales and marketing, you've got those key times of the day in which you've got to do your role to get to your audience, which I think it can sometimes be more of a challenge looking at, say, flexible hours for roles like us than it would be in, say, other areas that are not time dependent on what your clients work, shall we say. But I think you're absolutely right. Now is the time, isn't it, to kind of spec out what we want the future to look like. So what's the current situation with you guys? So Rachel, at ITV, you're still at home at the moment? What's the plan?
Yeah, I'm still at home. We are just reintroducing. So for us, we had to prioritise production, because we're based in the office where all of our ITV news is filmed. So we had to prioritise them being back. We've got, our office can have like 25% capacity. So we're just looking at how we can stagger and introduce people going back in 1 to 2 days a week in September. So very soon we'll start to do that. We're also going in to clear out our desks, which I think is really exciting, because we're already going to reimagine the workspace. So that's being looked at, the kind of setup. So the banks of desks will be transformed. There'll be more kind of amazing collaborative working spaces. So again, I just think it's accelerated actually what we've all had in the back of our minds for a long time. I think, what's the point in us all going in, sitting at our bank of desks and doing our individual work when we can do that perfectly well at home. Let's go in, let's collaborate, let's use that for the kind of really valuable face-to-face time and the time getting to know each other better. You know, I miss those kind of conversations. I think one thing with Zoom is we kind of jump online, we get on with what we've got to talk about, which is great for efficiency, but we kind of miss those little bits of banter, walking down the office, walking to get a cup of tea. So looking forward to getting back in the office as well, for a bit of light-hearted adult conversation.
And you know, that will be particularly important for your new starters as well, I imagine, to get that.
Absolutely. I can't wait to have a real face-to-face conversation with them.
Exactly. Mark, what's the current setup for you guys?
So our office in Soho opened up, I think it opened up in July. So, but only for a few people to go in, and then there's been a lot of, you know, how much capacity. Again, similar to Rachel, we're looking at 25% capacity at the moment. I went in for the first time a couple of weeks ago into London, into office, and it was, you know, the hygiene levels are superb in our office. You'll be glad to know. And then I think going forward, next few weeks, we'll be looking at 50% capacity. So again, I think the challenge is not almost the office space; it's that getting to the office space. There's still quite a lot of fear there. I'm not talking about just Clear Channel either, just generally about public transport. But yeah, I'm going back in for next week from 2 days a week. And God, I've missed the food in Soho. That's one of the main reasons. But there you go.
Good. And I think it's similar here at ALF. I was mentioning, before we kicked off, we're trying to navigate an office move during lockdown has been a bit of a challenge. But I think it's very much the same, looking at how we can work in a lower capacity, and but still have the opportunity to meet up. The first meeting I had with my team a few weeks ago, us as a group, it was just brilliant. You forget how long we've actually been doing this for, I think. So I mean, it sounds to me then it's all about getting a balance of both then moving forward. Yeah, great.
Yeah, agree.
Well, I mean, working from home has certainly been something we've all had to navigate, but there's a bigger question here as well, in terms of how we've had to work with our clients and how we've had to successfully sell and market during this period. So I know that it's changed obviously the way that we work internally, but let's not be quiet about it. Advertising spend has been a real problem during the period, and I think it has, for all. There's
Can we
been
not talk about that?
well, let me bring up that ALF survey again, Mark, because there was something that I found particularly interesting, and that was 91% of our respondents said that they've actually had to change what their sales and marketing message is. During this period. And on top of that, 65%, so the vast majority of people are also looking to target brands and advertisers that typically have not been on their radar or their day-to-day. And I think that's really important in terms of how we've adapted to this. So I mean, Rachel, has this been the case at ITV as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So right at the start of lockdown, as Mark said, as marketeers, we're kind of always on. We're responsible for the comms and setting the tone of voice. I have never, ever in my working life had to kind of think about that, revisit that, and change and adapt that as often as we have, and we'll continue to do so. It's a weekly, task that we do and that we look at. And we have something called the ITV Village, an ongoing, where we have a panel of thousands of ITV viewers. So we can really assess what the mood of the nation is. And we did that throughout. And then we adapted our kind of tone of voice throughout to our audience as well, and to our clients and our advertisers. And what we found was we had to, it really was a kind of time of a bit of anxiety and fear. People, smaller businesses really fearing for business. And so we had to be realistic and have a realistic tone, but we had to be positive because we didn't want to layer on fear on top of fear. That would just be the wrong message to put out there. So we really, do get together as a team every week, discuss what's happening. We've done additional research with kind of SMEs, with YouGov, just continually monitoring so that we can try and get closer to clients, because obviously, that's kind of our key role, and just really understand what their position is, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and how we can help support them at this time. So it has, been a challenge, but one that I think we've definitely been up for, and just being agile, ripping up everything, not being afraid to be precious and rip up all those plans that we'd all spent so hard, long and hard working on, and just being agile and thinking what's best for our clients.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark, was it the same case for you at Clear Channel?
Pretty similar. I think the pace of change has been relentless the last 6 months. But as I mentioned at the start, one of our core pillars was about being socially responsible, because we've got like thousands of poster sites up and down the UK, and it was about getting the right tone of voice, the right message, because we work with councils, we work with big businesses, small businesses. So really, it was about tone of voice, not encouraging people to go out of home. Was a challenge. And in terms of the sort of, we have worked a lot with councils about how to keep your community safe. So, but tone of voice, like Rachel, I've never experienced anything like it in 20 years of working, and the pace has been unbelievable.
How? Because you both mentioned that pace of just having to adapt and do things quickly. How do you take the temperature on the tone of things that you want to put out there, Mark?
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Rachel.
No,
Sorry.
go on.
I think for us, we did a lot of social listening. So we did kind of, there are tools that can do that for you. But also for us, we were just looking across Twitter, looking across LinkedIn, really looking at what people were saying. And you can really get a sense of what people think and feel when you do that kind of social listening activity. And, sometimes we did one post, we put it out there and we got it a little bit wrong. I remember we posted that, of course, viewing figures are amazing. And somebody put, well, of course they are, we're all trapped at home. So, we had to adapt and evolve the way we were communicating, and as marketeers, and when you're turning things around that quickly, you don't always get it right, but then we can just adapt and iterate and get it right the next time.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark, is that the same for you, using social and those kind of channels to?
A little bit, but part of it is just we've had this tone of voice of Clear Channel for a few years where we talk about the difference, about how we're part of like the infrastructure, a lot about how out of home actually the revenue raised goes back into communities. So it's almost following that arc, and it's just checking in with each other, trusting people's judgment, having a set of clear guidance about what we can and can't communicate, and being crystal clear and then consistent throughout the organisation, so that no one goes off piste and you actually know what's right. I think that's something that we've been honing for a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the shape of the advertising industry has had to change a little bit. So let's take travel as a sector as an example, which has been severely impacted by this. And from an advertising perspective, that idea that we're having to target brands that we haven't approached before, or we've had to maybe try and replace areas where we've worked in a lot, but because of what's happened, we've had to change that. Have there been any kind of brand areas or sectors that you've seen in the industry that are a bit more prominent than they used to be? Rachel?
I think online brands, because
Yeah.
obviously they were already set up and ready to go.
Yeah.
So we've definitely seen an increase in them coming to TV. And we've also interestingly seen brands pivot, changing what they do. We had a bakery in the north. Obviously, they were closed, and they built a website really quickly and started selling flour and yeast and all of those products that were so hard to get their hands on. How amazing is that? It's a wonderful story, and they came onto TV to kind of let everybody know about that. So yeah, I think there's some really interesting examples of success out there as well that we can kind of all learn a lot from moving forwards.
Yeah, exactly. And any particular brands jump out to you, Mark, or kind of brand areas during this period?
I think well, one thing, I was in London, Oxford Street, a couple of weeks ago, and I saw Dettol across, and this is one of our competitors, but across Oxford Street Station in one of those prominent sites, and that was like, oh my god, that's happening. But just quite well. But aside from that, I think we've definitely noticed. I mean, obviously with supermarkets being like really busy, and the places you could go to, we've definitely noticed FMCG brands. Like there's one prominent advertiser during lockdown who called Emily's Crisps. So they did some sort of tongue-in-cheek outdoor advertising, which is about like, this is our first outdoor campaign, no one will see it, and it was all those sort of creators, which was quite funny, but also quite annoying as well, because that. So FMCG brands, we've noticed autos and motors, cars coming back actually September. And the other thing I think we've really noticed is just the pace at which campaigns going live. Like Rachel mentioned, turning around stuff in 24 hours. That's really happening in outdoor a lot now, and obviously because of digital, we can do that more than ever. We wouldn't have been able to do this 10 years ago. So you're noticing more speed, a lot more short-term laydowns. I don't know if, like, again, Rachel seems to indicate that's happening with TV as well. So it's that, going back to that pace point again. There is advertising out there, and it's just getting quicker and quicker and quicker. And it's up to businesses to actually be able to adapt to that and to make sure that we can get these campaigns live as quickly as possible.
Yeah. There's definitely an aspect of speed in all of this, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, I'm hopeful that we're coming out the end of this now, and we're seeing, more advertisers return, and we're trying to navigate, I hate to say it, but the new normal going forward. And I think getting, businesses confident again to come and advertise and get in front of an audience is really important. And I understand that both of you have got initiatives within your companies to try and support businesses doing this and get that message out. Rachel, can you share with us what you're doing at ITV to support businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just launched ITV Backing Business, which is aimed at supporting British business get back on their feet again. That's businesses of all shapes and sizes. And we've got marketing, we can offer marketing support, business support and consumer insights. So we're going to be doing a series of live weekly webinars, because we still love a webinar at the moment, kicking off next Wednesday at 11, where we've got Nina Hussain, our ITV News presenter, joined by 3 really prolific advertisers who were all around and at the top of their game during the last recession. So we're going to go back to 2008 and look at what are the kind of tips and advice and success stories from them, and what brands can learn moving into what we all know, because we have to stay realistic, is going to be a tough year next year. So we're really excited to be kind of putting on content like that And then the week after, we're going to follow up with a consumer insight session with external experts, GfK, coming in to give us an update on what customers are actually doing, what are the new habits, what's the new normal in the shops, online, etc. So, yeah, we just want to be able to bring our clients all of the kind of access to research, to advice, to support, bring our clients together to talk and, like I said earlier, just have a voice and communicate, because I think you can learn a lot from each other. So we'll just be bringing that community of people together to really kind of, share kind of good advice and hopefully, we're all in it together.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's a sense of that, isn't that? The people are more open to working, working together. That's great. I hope the initiative does what you need it to do for these businesses. It sounds really interesting. And Mark, what are you doing over at Clear Channel?
We've already done something. So we did a scheme called Business as Unusual back in June, where we ran 253 campaigns for local businesses across the UK. And funny, Rachel mentioned a bakery, because that was our sort of strapline of bakers, butchers and candlestick makers. And this was really for the smallest businesses. So you talked about like businesses who are adapting, going online. We ran that back in June and at the early part of July, and the businesses loved it, because the amount of images we got of people putting their face next to a poster site was amazing. And then apart from that, we've got a something on the Clear Channel website called the Return Hub, where again that pace of stuff, we're now getting weekly data from around, I think it's about 10 million mobiles a week, and where we can tell who's coming back to what parts of the country, what formats they're seeing, and then that's updated. I think it's every Wednesday, Thursday. So it's about giving clients real confidence that actually there are a lot of people back on the streets, and there are in different environments. Yes, it's important to be safe, but so we've been running that's been up and running for about a month or so, about 6 weeks. But again, we update that every week. Then we've changed the flexibility of out of home, so cancellation deadlines have moved. So if there is local lockdowns, it's basically about giving clients and businesses and people confidence that they can be much more flexible. And like Rachel says, it's about much more working together collaboratively, and ultimately, and it sounds like a cliche, but getting through this together, because let's face it, we've never been through anything like this, have we? So, and hopefully we're on again.
Exactly. Fingers crossed. And hopefully companies are going to start feeling more comfortable with coming back and trying to get their own businesses back up and running. And I think advertising is a big part of that.
There is a part of it. But there is part of it that actually some people have done really, really well out of it. And I've seen a stat that says 60% of people's incomes haven't changed or gone up. So the news obviously is all about the really bad stuff, which is completely fair enough. But there are businesses who've adapted really well, changed. So it isn't a one sort of type of news story.
Yeah, you're right, and we do probably concentrate on the negatives a little bit, but there will always be advertisers, companies, brands that react really well from this. And often when the going gets tough, you also get people really standing up to the challenge. And I think for me, that's highlighted that within my own team, is that oh my God, these guys are fantastic. They're really, really good. And I mean, I certainly would like to hear from you guys, who do you think in your teams has really gone above and beyond during this period and been a real star. Mark, can you think of anybody in particular that has just done a great job?
Well, I think to be honest, I think
Everyone.
it's going to sound, but everyone who's like, obviously some people have been on furlough, some people haven't, and I think both sides, because those who haven't have been picking up a lot of work and basically just working out like above, I think, what is normal. There's one particular person in my team who came back from furlough actually in July, Matt Spencer, and I talked about that return hub earlier. And like literally every Wednesday and Thursday, he changes about 10 different documents, updates the website, and it's all done ridiculously quick. And it's amazing difference it makes to sales, because a lot of what we do is support sales, and you can see them presenting this stuff online, and it's reassuring clients. So yeah, I think Matt and my team deserves a good pat on the back.
Yeah, fantastic. And Rachel, what about over at ITV and your team? Is there anyone that sticks out for you?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult, as Mark said, because everyone has just been amazing during, very challenging times. So it is really, really tough. But I did want to mention, I've got the most amazing apprentice in my team called Lainey Simons. She's the only person in my team who we did furlough for 3 weeks, but came back and is just always so positive, always so determined. She's just got such a great work ethic. And similar to Mark, so she just helps us with our always on comms, always turning everything around so quickly. I don't know how she does it. I blink and she's transformed things online and on digital. And as Mark said, that has been so critical, just communicating with clients in a timely fashion. We've needed to get information to them so quickly, and be transparent and open with them, which we really have tried to be during this period. And she's just an absolute superstar, and kind of also kept us all going with her. She's really arty, amazing artist, kept us all going with everything that she's been doing as well in her spare time. So yeah, I'd love to give a shout out to Lainey.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's just great to highlight, what passion and dedication that we still have, in this industry, and it has been tough, but we've been doing some great work as well. I think that's shown by Lainey and Matt. It's really nice that you're able to share the story with them. So Alf will send them a little bottle of bubbly to say well done, and keep doing what you're doing. So I know we've had quite a few questions. We are running out of time a little bit, but maybe we could just quickly do do one or two. Okay, so question from Louise. So speaking of new advertisers, have you gained a lot of new business or customers that you would have not if we were not in the current situation?
It's a good question.
It's a good question.
We just put out a press release the other day to say we've just put 30 new advertisers on TV during lockdown, which is fantastic. And a lot of, as I said, a lot of them are online businesses, who are like fully set up, obviously want to keep that conversation, build brand awareness, keep that conversation going with their customers. So for them, it's been kind of a fantastic opportunity to try television for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And going forward, it might have opened up that medium for, a whole range of new advertisers. What about you, Mark? Any particular kind of new clients that you've seen?
Well, I mentioned the sort of FMCG brands. Yeah. So definitely that sector's been seeing the benefits of out of home. Other than that, I wouldn't say any new sectors. I'd say what we've noticed is that people are using sort of like digital out of home. So we had likes of JD Sports, Costa Coffee, when they started reopening again, all displaying like local messages or encouraging like the link between mobile and out of home using well. So we just seen people using sort of digital out of home, like almost progressing that a little bit further than it was probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it will certainly, I think it will certainly be interesting, to understand what new sectors are going to be prominent in mainstream channels. And there's certainly been some, with any recession or issues like that, you also get a whole load of new companies and startups taking off. So it will be interesting to see those positives and those new brands that are going to be coming to market or on their way as well. I'm afraid we're out of time. I would have happily carried this on all day, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences, about this crazy few months that we've been through. And it sounds, certainly for me, I think, what's come through is working from home has got to be a balance of both. We've got to keep those positives that we've experienced, but let's go and see our colleagues again, and not let go of the power of being face to face. And I think from what both of you have said, speed has been of the essence over this period, and being able to evolve with the landscape and reacting quickly is been incredibly powerful and important in terms of your own businesses and supporting clients. So thank you so much for joining us. I will let you all go, and please do look out for our next ALF Talks. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you,
Mark.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.